How do I, Joe? That one was yours.
It is. How do I teach my kids to be patient with their money?
You just don't give them any.
Right? So what spawned this is in the pre-show, Charles and I were talking briefly about Mario plus Rabbids 2 specifically. And it's a Ubisoft game, and anyone who pays attention to Ubisoft knows that give it 6 months, maybe a year, and those $60 games are going to be like $20. And
roll that dice.
Wrong button. Sorry.
Yes, you can roll the dice and just wait that many months, and then you'll have a deal.
That was the button.
And but my kids, they had to have it for Christmas the year that it came out. Like it came out like a few weeks before Christmas or a month before Christmas. And so it made me think, like, if my kids would just be patient and wait, then they could save a ton of money, or we could save a ton of money. Or recently, my son wanted a game called Boomerang Foo, which is a Switch game where you're food that have boomerangs and you chop each other in half. So, you know, there's that. But if you look at Deku Deals, which is a website I use to check deals on Switch games all the time,
Yep.
that game goes on sale for like $2 or $3 every few months. And I told my son, I'm like, look, do you want to spend your money on this, or do you want to wait a few months and you will save $12, you know, because it's normally 15. He's like, no, I want it right now. I'm like, okay. And so
How is this one that we're speaking of?
11. It's my 11-year-old. And so how do you go about teaching them to be patient with their money?
Can I go?
Yeah.
Well, back in his day, TV
back
was
in
a
my
nickel.
day, we traded rocks and we bartered for baseballs.
And gosh darn it, we liked it.
So here's the problem. The problem is, how many of us have paid for video games for launch day?
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Yeah. So I have a real, and granted, this is a specific thing. Like, I think your question's probably more generic, but the actual thing is a thing. But the video game, the thing, those are often sought at launch day because their friends got them, or, you know, the zeitgeist of the whole thing happens more right around launch time, right? And so the excitement that you get, or the excitement changes when it's already been out for 6 months. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying video games are a weird breed. But that being said, the big question is, does the kid have his own money to spend on this?
With the Boomerang Foo example, yes, that was his own money.
Okay. So I have a really hard time with that.
Saying no to drugs?
No, I have a really hard time with that, in that saying, like, you can make the recommendation.
And
like,
I did.
But you kind of got to let them, if they've got their own money, you kind of got to let them learn, you know, because at some point they're going to go, oh man, I'd still have some money if I waited. But I think people kind of got to learn that whole thing. Now, there is another way. Like, let's say let's just use the video game thing. You could say, look, if you wait and not get it right now, I will pay for half of it when the price drops, as even more of an incentive to wait.
So you get an even better deal?
Yeah. Now, it still may not matter, but you're trying to encourage them to do that, to wait. Because it doesn't sound like your kids have as much of a saving up money for the thing problem. You just want them to be more frugal.
Yeah. Well, and my wife put it in the chat here. We make them wait for 3 weeks. So they tell us that they're interested in buying something. That way they don't impulse buy. Unless, now we do have some caveats. If there's like a limited time sale, it's a really good sale, then we have made it so they didn't have to wait the 3 weeks. But in general, we don't like them impulse buying stuff, and so that's what we make them do.
Right. So then the weird question is it actually an impulse buy if they buy it on launch day because they have, I don't know, maybe I'm making a presumption, but have they been doing what I would do, and that it would be obsess over it for a month before launch to get really hyped up on it and read as much as I can about the thing, and then when launch day hits, I'm ready. Maybe they're not like that. Maybe they are like that. So the impulsiveness of it is a little different. I think the idea of making them wait 3 weeks is a really good one for a different reason. Because when it comes out, it may stink. It may be a terrible game. Because we've all seen that show before where everybody's pumped for a game and it comes out, No Man's Sky, and it's terrible upon launch.
Terrible.
And it only got good, 3 years after launch?
After they patched it a whole bunch?
Yeah. So I don't know. It's not easy. It's not easy, but I think the big win is they save up their own money. That's the big win.
Yeah.
Versus begging you to buy it for them and you caving.
Yeah. Well, and they earn money through reading books and doing chores. So
okay. But still, there's value for value there, right? You are paying them and they're doing something to earn that.
Yeah, and they don't generally buy stuff on release in general, with the exception of the Rabbids one that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, it's usually I went to a friend's house, I played this game, I must have it now type of thing is a lot of what it is. Or I saw an ad for this, I want it now. Now we have gotten around some of that by downloading on the Switch specifically. A lot of times you can download a demo before they come out. So like the Princess Peach game that came out not too long back, we downloaded a demo, they played the demo, and they actually ended up watching their favorite YouTuber play through it as well. And then we haven't really heard anything about it since. So we ended up not buying that because, well, they seem to have lost interest.
So what you're saying is you don't actually have a problem.
No, I don't know.
No.
I'm going to go the other way.
I'm more giving you crap about it. I think that a lot of the problems that a lot of parents find are different than what you're facing.
Yeah, mine is rather mild. My kids are in general fairly patient, but that's because we've also established various rules that gatekeep how often they can buy games. So
Great.
And we've also told them under no circumstances will we ever buy them a cosmetic for a game. If they want to save their own money for it, that's one thing. But if they want a cosmetic, we will never buy that for them.
I was looking for something appropriate to create fireworks with. That is fantastic. Cosmetics are dumb. They're just dumb. So,
yeah.
But your problem, your thing that you're asking about is how do you teach them patience with money? And everybody's different, right? Every kid is different. So it doesn't necessarily mean that what I did worked will work for your kids. We started real early with all of them. And when we had the money, right, they were toddlers. Our rule was, and we didn't tell them this, it was just between my wife and I. We usually, if we went to a place like Tours or Russ, yeah, that's where we'd go.
Rip.
The kids, there was this great place you could go and actually see a lot of toys and put your hands on them and do all kind of cool stuff. And you can't anymore. But we would have a $10 to $15 set aside budget in our head to say, okay, if they hold on to it through the entire store, we'll get it for them. And more times than not, they lose interest halfway through, and we wouldn't buy it. Every once in a while, we'd buy one. Yes, it was way too expensive, but whatever. But every once in a while, we'd buy them one toy. So we started there. And then with their birthday money, depending on how much they got, sometimes we started young. We said, you have to put away this much into savings, period. And we told them what savings was. We were teaching them all that. And then we taught them about sales and looking at one point, the sales were always those yellow tags. So they learned to really hunt those yellow tags, because if they got the yellow tags, they could buy more toys. And we taught them how to budget, basically. And we made them do that. They put 2 or 3 or 4 things in the cart, and we do the math. So you got to pick one, and then they pick one. Now, that's not quite the patience you're talking about where they have to have it right now. But as we just progress through all of that, partially, I made sure to give them their fix on some things. I'd have the games in my house. As a side note, Joe, I really think you should look into GameFly. At the time that I left it, if it's still around, I think I had it pre-COVID. I don't know if they're still a thing anymore. But at the time I left, it was less than $20 a month, and we'd have 2 games out at a time. And it was so nice. And you could pre-order the rental of a new game like the Rabbids coming out, right? Now, and so it'd come in a day or two, and you can keep it as long as you want. So that's a side note of if you want to help. That helped, though, because I had games coming in. So it wasn't like, oh, my friend's like, okay, cool. I'll move it to the top of the list. It'll be here next week.
I would be worried, not if I owned GameFly, I would be worried because there's within the past few months, or at least that's when I saw it, there's a new technique for cloning Switch cartridges.
Okay.
And because of how the internals work, if 2 copies of a game are online at the same time, one of them won't work. So I would be worried about people cloning their copies of games.
But back to finishing the patience thing, still to this day, not so much with the 17 and 19-year-old, but definitely with the 11 and almost 13-year-old, we don't let them spend all their birthday money. Because they get about $150 amongst the grandparents and us and whatever. And so it's okay. Again, but we'd already built that into them. Every time they get money, you're putting this much in the savings. And then at certain points in the year, they go, oh, how much do I have in my savings account? And we go, okay, you can take this much of it and spend it. You have this much, portions of it. And that became a game for them as well. Like, oh, hey, I saw this game. Do I have the money saved up? And it just kind of helped. And honestly, there were just times when I was like, yeah, no, don't care. No. Why not, Dad? My friends have like, yeah, your friends have, but you just bought a Nerf gun last month, and you wanted to, and just, no, you can't spend all your money. And I've just been real hardcore about that a little bit. And it seems to work out some. And I say it in that tone of voice because when Oakland got to be 16 and started making his own money, and he would go buy gift cards for Xboxes, I would see game purchase. And I went, hey, buddy, why'd you just purchase all of the Elder Scrolls? Those things are like 200 hours each. What? Oh, well, it was a deal. Like, was it though? Was it a deal? So yeah, it doesn't always take, but I get, you just you pick and choose your battles, man, where you're going to do it, and just say no. And honestly, that 3-week thing, that is some patience, right? I mean, how did it work out with the Rabbids? Did he know it was coming out ahead of time, so he kind of cheated the 3-week system because he couldn't buy it?
Well, so that one they asked for Christmas, so it wasn't them buying it.
Santa Claus knows when the sales are coming, and he might just forget until like, oh, look, this late Christmas present showed up in March. Man, Santa must have. I'm sorry, Flying Spaghetti Monster. I forget who the Mormons are. But yeah, you see what I'm saying. What?
I think he said something like
Spaghetti Monster.
Oh, I thought he said Mormons like Digimon.
I like Digimon.